Hey, Social Work Tribe, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Margaret Mahler's theory, so stay tuned. Okay, so with Margaret Mahler, her theory, object relations theory. For this theory, object is referring to people, parts of people, or things that symbolically represent a person or part of a person. So just to be clear with that, believes that the early childhood attachments with our parents with a primary focus on the mother impacts our relationship skills throughout our life. Healthy upbringings are determined by how well a child can psychologically separate from their caregiver or mother and form their own sense of identity as a separate individual. Throughout these 0 to 38 months, it's a bit of a mental tug of war for the child of truly realizing that they are separate from their caregiver or mother and that they are their own person or individuation. And for individuation, it's the process of forming a stable personality. Throughout this process, they gain a clear sense of self that is separate from their parents and others around them. So right off the bat, we're saying like, okay, what's the real idea of this theory, right? Where it's about forming healthy relationships, being able to form healthy relationships later into adulthood. And they're saying it all starts within that time span of 0 to 38 months. And admittedly, I saw some different information where some of the months kind of varied a bit, but for the most part, it's still within that same time frame of 3-ish years and focusing on the relationship dynamic between the child and the mother. So looking at the first phase, it's called the normal autism with a subphase. There is no subphase, so I just put NA. That's 0 to 1 month. The infant sleeps a lot. The infant is only really aware of themselves. And Mahler later discontinued this phase based on new findings from her infant research. So when I saw this, I'm like, why is it even here? But, I'm still giving you guys this information. And on the exam, disclaimer, I don't know what's going to be on the exam or anything like that. Going on to the next phase, this is the normal symbiotic phase. And just like with the first one, subphase, there is no subphase. This is 1 to 5 months. The child is aware of their mother. However, there's not a sense of individuality. The infant believes they are one with the mother and focuses on that. The infant isn't really focused on the rest of the world, so just kind of really focused on the mother. So let's jump into the third phase, separate individuation. The subphase is differentiation and hatching. So kind of like, I think of like a chick, like hatching from an egg. This is 5 to 9 months. The infant is now alert and interested in the differences of their caregiver or mother. The infant may pull on her hair and clothing due to the curiosity and interest. So this is becoming more like curious, like, ooh, like different, right? Pulling, just seeing like, ooh, what's this texture and everything, right? And then when we go into the practicing phase or the subphase, the regular phase is NA, it's not there. The subphase is practicing, and this is from 9 to 15 months. The infant begins to explore the world away from their mother by crawling and walking, but make sure the caregiver or the mother is still within the area. So they go and explore out, but they're not going too far. However, the child still thinks their caregiver, mother, is connected with them. So when we scroll back up just for a second, right? And the main focus is object relations theory. It's like, what is all of this about? Believes that the early childhood attachments with our parents with a primary focus on the mother impacts our relationship skills throughout our life. Healthy upbringings are determined by how well a child can psychologically separate from their caregiver or mother and form their own sense of identity as a separate individual. Throughout these 0 to 38 months, it's a bit of a mental tug of war for the child of truly realizing that they are separate from their caregiver or mother and that they are their own person, individuation. And again, individuation is the process of forming a stable personality. Throughout this process, they gain a clear sense of self that is separate from their parents and others around them. So When we hear this, really keep in mind as you know they go through this process, they want to become their own person that consciously knows like, hey, this is a whole nother person over here. We're our own person, and that comes with everything that comes with it, right? We have our own likes, our own dislikes, right? What we want to focus on. Mother, person, caregiver, they're over here. We are our own entity, and there's other entities in this world. So just want to highlight that again. So we're going to go now to the phase NA, but the subphase is rapprochement. This is 15 to 24 months. The child realizes that their caregiver or mother is a separate person and won't always be around and wants to become closer with the caregiver, mother again. So again, that tug of war, because this is taking place within 3-ish months. So think about an infant what does an infant do within those early stages, right? Eat, sleep, cry, right? And as they continue to develop more and more, they're starting to look around more, become curious, like pulling on their hair, like, just kind of, that's why their hands be kind of like, oh, like reaching out and everything. And in this one, again, within the 15 to 24 month window, the child realizes that their caregiver or mother is a separate person and won't always be around and wants to become closer with the caregiver. Again, the child may become tentative, which means done without confidence, hesitant. So they want their caregiver or mother to be in sight, to be around, not be too far, right? Because they just like, it's like, hey, I want you there, right? Don't go too far. I want you there. I want to do my thing over here. I want to play over here, but I need to, check, make sure you good. You over here. You watching me? Okay, cool. Still want them to, right? Because they're not ready to kind of just be completely out on their own type of thing. And I put a side note here: the caregiver, or again mother, and I put it like this because there's a lot of emphasis on saying the mother, the mother, the mother. Yes, the caregiver, growing up in different, family households, it can look different, right? The caregiver could be, the father, the caregiver could be, grandparents, aunts and everything, but they're focusing on the mother. Could respond to their child's behavior with impatience or unavailability. Basically, the caregiver or the mother might think their child is being too needy. As a result, the child could develop a fear of abandonment in the child. And remember, this is only covering the first 3-ish years. It's not going from birth all the way to the end of life, right? So within that time, that small time frame, right? So if the mother is perceiving the child's behavior as, needy because she's responding in a way where it's impatience or just unavailability, now the child's needs aren't getting met because now the child's viewing that lack of attention, that lack of assurance, which could result in developing a fear of abandonment in the child. Now going on to this phase of object constancy, subphase. There is no subphase. This is ranging 24 to 38 months. The child understands that they and the mother are completely separate as individuals and their identity. Throughout this process of individuation, the process of which again is a process of forming a stable personality, they gain a clear sense of self that is separate from their parents and others around them. A child gains an unconscious level of support and comfort from having a good and healthy caregiver or the mother dynamic. A child that has not internalized enough guidance, support, comfort, etc. throughout this process could lead to insecurity and low self-esteem issues in adulthood. And I wrote this right here for you guys of Ray. Cool video, but how do I use and apply this information if it pops up on my exam? Great question. In short, when you see / hear Mahler, think of object relations theory. Mahler is focused on our relationship skills that are impacted by the dynamic between the caregiver. So again, the focus is on the mother and the child within the first 3 years of their upbringing. As the child continues to grow, they become more aware that they are their own individual person, separate from their mother. If the caregiver or the mother responds to their child's behavior with impatience or unavailability, the child could develop a fear of abandonment in childhood and insecurity and low self-esteem issues in adulthood. Now, I wrote this because this is something that we can write on an index card, just kind of get the gist of it, right? Where, on the exam, they may not specifically ask like every single thing about every single question of like, hey, what stage doesn't have a subphase, or what stage doesn't have a phase, right? It's not necessarily going to ask that, but for when it comes to these theories, we definitely want to have just like a general understanding of it. So if they're speaking to this, like the age range, and we're like, okay, if they're talking about something, someone later in their senior age life and near death and things like that, they're not necessarily talking about Mahler, right? They're not talking about her theory. But if they're more so speaking to certain things when it comes to object relations theory, where it's like, wait a second, this deals with relationships. This deals with, impact of, our upbringing, the dynamic between the mother. This is what we kind of want to zone in on and have, again, that general understanding of these theories as a whole. Okay, Social Work Tribe, that's it for today's video. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as I plan to come out with more content, and tell a social work friend. So, we don't want to be licensed by ourselves, and we want to continue to grow the tribe. And like I always say, you got this. Breathe. Make sure we're doing at least our 2 practice questions a day, because it helps keep the anxiety at bay. And, making our own index cards, our information guides, and connecting with the social work buddy that's also studying for the exam to help keep us accountable and give each other that support. So you got this. All right, guys, I'll see you next video. Bye.